Ask and you shall receive.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. He's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. We were discussing on Tuesday's episode how Oklahoma might need to go after a center, interior offensive lineman in the transfer portal. And on Tuesday, later that day, we discovered, according to Pete Nakos and other people, that the Oklahoma Sooners were set to host an interior offensive lineman, a guy who started a bunch of games at center and a few games at guard. Jay, ask and you shall receive. This is incredible. The Oklahoma Sooners will be hosting Jake Mykula, the Stanford interior offensive lineman, at some point, and looks like maybe they've got their target for backup center, interior offensive line swing guy.
Yeah, I know. Yesterday was definitely April Fool's Day, so we were a little bit on edge in making sure that it wasn't a bad information or a very bad joke that was being played against us. But no, it looks like Stanford's Jake Mykula is going to make a visit per Pete Nakos, as well as Chris Hummer over there at 247. He is set to visit Oklahoma and UCLA this week, so that means that the Sooners will probably see him in the next couple of days. And if you followed me over on my channel, Unfair Sports, you understand the thing that we do that others don't do is this. We follow the tea leaves. So there's not a guarantee that we're going to be right, but it's usually we're not wrong. We follow what the tea leaves are telling us. And when I looked at Jake Mykula, it looks like he's doing a lot of following of Oklahoma accounts. And if that's the case, John, it's a possibility that Oklahoma's going to grab themselves a backup center that we kind of desperately need right now. Think it'll be a good thing for us.
Well, and who knows if it's a guy that can come in and just compete with Troy Everett as well and push him a little bit, push for a starting job. I mean, he started 11 games for Stanford, both at center and at left guard. He played over 700 snaps. So it's a dude with experience. They can play a couple different positions, and that helps you a lot because if you look at your offensive line, okay, you like who you've got starting for you right now, but you're not super deep with a lot of experience. You're very inexperienced. The guy that stood out the most on that too deep is Ryan Foje, but he's a true freshman. Yeah. Keith Ozida has been out all spring, and you're still developing a Daniel Akinkunmi. Eddie Pierre Louis is going to start. You lost Eugene Brooks to the transfer portal, so you're a little bit thin on the interior. So you need to do something. And the reason you're kind of able to get a little bit of ahead of the spring portal window is because Stanford just fired their head coach. And so now some of these guys are entering the portal because they got that 30-day window, and you're going to have opportunities to maybe get a little bit of a head start for some of these Stanford offensive linemen. And that's worked out well for you in the past. Walter Rouse was really, really good for you when he was here at Oklahoma. You did add Luke Baklenko, who's going to have some familiarity, obviously, with Jake Mykula. So this is it's a very intriguing option for Oklahoma, and he's going to have some eligibility left too.
And I'm glad you make mention of that because for the uninitiated, they're probably wondering, the spring portal ain't open yet. How is this happening? Well, Andrew Luck decided that the head coach at Stanford, it made no sense for them to go forward and keep him as the head coach, mainly because not only was he in trouble for quote unquote bullying players, which, coaches can be mean, but I think that he went a little too far. The limits where he was a habitual line stepper when it came to that. But he was also 3-9 2 years in a row. So you can't be a bully and an a-hole to all your players and then be 3-9 2 years in a row. That's not acceptable. We'll let it slide if you win 9 games in the season, but we're not going to let it slide if you lose 9 games. But I digress. For the uninitiated, because he got fired recently, now they have a 7-day window for players to hit the transfer portal, and we're seeing it. There's been a good group of Stanford guys. David Bailey hit the portal, and unfortunately, he may be ended up in Texas. They're hosting him right now. He's an edge who was actually a solid edge for Stanford, but a couple of their offensive linemen have hit, and then Mykula is one that, for Oklahoma, and I think you said it best, What we need is someone with experience that can rotate around the interior. Like I said, Heath Ozida is coming off of injury. We're waiting for him to get healthy or whatnot. Luka Baklenko can play interior, but I think he's better as an exterior. Ryan Fogier as well as Michael Fasusi are true freshmen, but you still got a bunch of depth opportunities there, but you still want an experienced center. And this is no knock on Troy Everett, but we have to remember, we lost Troy Everett last spring, and he didn't come back until in the middle of the season. That's when you saw the rotation of offensive linemen from Gary and Hatchett, right? Like, it just did not look very good with all those different offense centers you had to go through. I think you had 4 different centers in 3 games because of dealing with injuries. And so now Troy Everett has solidified himself as your main dude. That's awesome. But if he goes down, you're dealing with a redshirt freshman in Josh Isosa who's still trying to get his bearings done, or true freshman in Owen Hollenbeck, and possibly Sean Hutton, who's another true freshman walk-on. You want someone that has a little bit more experience on the interiors, and that's what Jake would give you if you can win his services over UCLA. And John, you said it perfectly. We have very good track record with Stanford players, from Walter Rouse to Luke Baklenko, and now the familiarity for Baklenko with Mykula, there's a good chance that you could convince him to come in as well. And there's a chance that, like you said, he could push Troy Everett, but I could see him being a really good rotational piece with Fabichi Iwewu, or even with Eddie Pierre Louis, because in those interiors, you want to make sure you have yourself one more person in deep. Because I think, for Iwewu, you were going to have Eddie Pierre right behind him. But Eddie Pierre looking really good at left guard. So you may, like I said, he's probably going to win that left guard position. But then you can have Heath and Mykula as a rotational piece, which will be beneficial for this team.
Yeah, he was a former 3-star prospect coming out of in the 2021 recruiting class. Sorry, 2021. And he had a good, healthy set of offers. He had Nebraska, Colorado, and this is pre-Dion, but also with Arizona and Baylor and BYU, Colorado State, Iowa State, Kansas State, Missouri, Minnesota. So, I mean, this Virginia Tech. So this is it was a good group of offers that he had, and obviously went to Stanford. Stanford's gone through some changes. So, I think this is a very intriguing possibility for the Oklahoma Sooners. I like the direction that they're going here because he does have 2 years of eligibility. If he were to play at all this year, then he would just have 1 year of eligibility. If he doesn't play for you at all, then you have 2 years of eligibility with him. But at worst, potentially you have your center answer for the 2026 season. At best, potentially you're bringing in somebody that could take a job, and you're providing some competitive depth at the center position that you don't really have right now.
And for him, there's also one more connection to the Sooners. He went to Valor Christian out there in Colorado. You know who else went there? Gavin and Gabe Sawchuk. So you got a couple of Sawchuk running backs. He blocked for Gavin. I don't think he blocked for Gabe, but he blocked definitely for Gavin when he was there at Valor Christian.
And he was the Gatorade Colorado National or Gatorade Colorado Player of the Year, mind you.
Exactly. So you've got yourself a good connection for Oklahoma. So I think that they're going to end up winning the services of Jake. We're going to cross our fingers and toes. If he visits, probably visit UCLA first, and he'll probably come to Oklahoma afterwards. And as like I said, there's a really good chance. I think Oklahoma has a very good chance of winning his services. The unfortunate thing is there's probably a better chance for him to start at UCLA than at Oklahoma. So the Sooners are going to have to definitely sell the opportunity of a lot of play over the next couple of years, or like you said, an opportunity to start next season when Troy Everett is gone, and it be yours while you're helping grooming the young players right behind you, because you're going to want to have Josh Isosa or Owen Hollenbeck in a good spot, a couple of years from now, and give them that position to ride for. So, yeah, I mean, there's advantages for UCLA, but I think Oklahoma has some good ones too, especially playing in SEC. If he wants to solidify himself as someone that should play in the NFL, he could do it here.
And you got Bill Bedenbaugh coaching you. So
absolutely. He's the
one.
one.
What else do you want? You got Coach Bill Bedenbaugh coaching. What else do you want?
Exactly.
So we got some one-on-ones. We got some highlights. We got some practice reports from Tuesday. We'll discuss coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is a reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest products info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House also offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you're always talking to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like dedicated phone line, free shipping, as well as discounts on every single order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. So join Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use the promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com.
Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Oklahoma Sooners allowed media to view quite a bit of practice on Tuesday. Jay, from everything that we saw on the social medias, the practice reports that came out on various set websites, what was the thing that stood out the most to you?
Honestly, I think it was the text message that you sent me about how you feel a little bit more better about the offensive line. And I love that, because when you said that and you sent the tweet from our guy, Geraldini 93, the former Sooner and Tampa Bay Buccaneer and future Hall of Famer, he pointed out that the defensive line took 4 L's in the 4 videos we saw that Braden Drum put out there. And it wasn't that the defensive line was like getting their butt kicks, but it was the offensive line did just enough to slow them down to where they couldn't get as much pressure on the quarterback as you would typically want from the defensive line. Now, this isn't saying that the defensive line is going to be bad or anything. Honestly, I still feel like this defensive line is probably going to be one of the best in the SEC, if not the best. But Gerald McCoy pointed out the way that the players were actually going through their moves. And, as an expert tactician on the defensive line, he broke it down for everybody. And I like the fact that he pointed out defensive line took some L's and the offensive line did just enough to force them to basically say it took them about 4 seconds through this line to get 4 to 5 seconds to get to the quarterback. And typically the ball is getting out between 2 to 3 seconds. And if John Mateer does that consistently, boy, it's going to be hard to be able to get enough pressure on them. So the offensive line is holding up the way that we hoped. And that is all we asked for. Hold up enough, give John Mateer just enough, give him the 3 seconds that we know that he will be beneficial to him. He'll push for the 4 to 5 seconds on his own and be able to make plays. That's the thing that jumped out the most to me.
One-on-one drills are really difficult to gauge how well someone's performing in a practice, especially along the offensive line, because offensive line play is about unit play. I mean, there's no position group that is as connected as the offensive line is. Everything you do, a lot of it depends on your splits. If you're an offensive tackle, you're split with the guard, your communication with that person, passing guys off in rushes, being aware of everything that's going on around you, being able to line up and just go one-on-one with somebody, that can be a little bit tricky because you don't have that guy next to you. And it's just going to feel a little bit different. So the fact that the offensive linemen were holding up, and I don't think that they were just doing just enough. They were winning these reps. And the only one that was like questionable was David Stone's rep. And I can't remember exactly who it was against. Maybe it was against
Eddie Pierre Louis.
Eddie Pierre Louis. So but Eddie Pierre Louis, he didn't get blown up. Did he get walked back? Okay, maybe. But as Gerald McCoy points out, it took David Stone quite a long time in football terms to get Eddie Pierre Louis back into where the quarterback was. If you have a quarterback that's able to manipulate the pocket and does a good job stepping around that pressure, if you're not getting pressure in 1 to 2 seconds, you're not going to get pressure. And if he's going to get the ball out quick, you're not going to get that pressure. I was really encouraged by Jacob Sexton's rep against R. Mason Thomas. I think to me, that was the one that stood out the most because R. Mason Thomas has got great speed, great athleticism, great quickness. Jacob Sexton is a big dude. And he's strong, and he's been working a lot on his flexibility. There was a note, I think it was from George Stoy of Sooner Scoop, maybe, or Brandon Drum, I can't remember which one, of OU Insider, talking about how he's been doing yoga this offseason to help improve his flexibility. And it stood out. I mean, Armisen Thomas is about as quick as you'll see in the SEC, and Jacob Sexton was able to hold up against him, and he moved really, really well and just kind of overpowered him as well. And that was a really, really encouraging sign for me. I think the offensive line is going to be better than what we expect them to be. And I think a lot of that expectation comes from what we saw in 2024. If you can have this group of 5 that's projected to start right now, starting for a majority, if not all of your season, this is going to look a lot better than what we saw last year.
You know what? I'll add to that, John. If this group of 10 is good and healthy, I mean, that's the big thing we're concerned about, knock on wood, has been health and having, attrition surviving throughout the season. If we can only have to rely on the 10 that we know that we want to play, this offensive line is going to be almost light years ahead of what they were last season because we've got the players in place that can actually do this. And that's where I'm not as concerned. The questions are there for the offensive line, but if Pierre Louis and Fabichu goes out there and they do what they're supposed to do, I'm Gucci. I think that this entire offensive line will be able to hold up. I have no concerns on the tackles whatsoever and I also know that John Mateer is going to do a great job of making sure he gets rid of the ball before it is too much of a concern, especially with Derek Simmons on the right-hand side of him. He can see that. He'll be prepared for it. And I think Waywoo will be able to hold up just enough to where, I mean, heck, he was an SEC Player of the Week one week, Offensive Lineman Player of the Week. So we obviously know he has the capabilities. He's just got to be consistent. Another one-on-one that I saw was Elijah Thomas, the true freshman. He went up against Jacoby Johnson. Now, this does make me have a little bit of concern about Jacoby, even though I am very high on the 6'2" corner with his athleticism. But I think Elijah Thomas is just an alien, and he hit him on an inside route, caught it, and bounced out for the touchdown. And I was like, okay, yeah, I think he's just that good in comparison to Jacoby Johnson being a liability. I think Jacoby's going to be fine, especially if we're mainly playing Eli Bowen and Gentry Williams, and you rotate Jacoby in and use his size to our advantage and his speed and athleticism. But I think Elijah Thomas is going to be someone that's going to be just absurdly talented for us going forward. And it's going to be really hard to keep him off the field, even with roughly 5 dudes that you should be playing ahead of him. Elijah might find a way to make him to end up in the top 3.
That just continues the buzz that we've been hearing about Elijah Thomas all spring. It just seems like every day that somebody's able to get out to practice, Elijah Thomas is making noise. He's making plays out there, which again, that's not something we were hearing from our true freshman wide receivers a year ago. That's a very different thing. The other thing about that stood out in those one-on-ones is, okay, one-on-ones for wide receiver versus defensive back, tight ends versus linebackers or safeties, those are honestly set up for the defender to lose. Those are going to be really, really difficult for those guys to win. But they were winning a lot of those reps. They were very, very competitive. There was a lot of balls that just weren't catchable because they were blanketing them. And that was really, really encouraging. There was only one rep where I saw somebody get kind of quote unquote burned. And that was the John Locke versus Michael Boganowski rep. But I'm not concerned about that at all. Again, it's a one-on-one. Coverage units, they work as a group, right? Just like offensive line plays offensive line as a group, defensive backs and linebackers, you play coverage as a group. You don't play, generally speaking, alone on an island. There are opportunities, there are times, but especially if you're a safety, there's most of those occasions you're playing in coverage with guys around you to help you in coverage as well. And that kind of helps determine your keys and how you're going to drop and how you're going to attack a receiver, how you're going to expect them to break, because you're going to expect there to be help one way or the other. And so anyway, I'm not concerned about all that, but I did think that the defensive backs and the linebackers did hold up very well in those one-on-one drills that we saw, which I think is encouraging, man. it's part of this growing defense that's going to be really good. When we saw guys like Cortland Gilbert play really, really well in his one-on-one rep. So that's, again, it's encouraging signs.
The only other one I saw that well, there's no concern here whatsoever, but it's one of those that we need to make sure we pay attention to. Honestly, it's not really us as fans. I think it's more so the staff, and I think they recognize this, is that you should never put Isaiah Sategna on with Kendall Daniels, because Kendall Daniels, as athletic as he is, he ain't keeping up with Sategna. And that was 100% proven in that route when he hit him on that out. It's nothing against Kendall Daniels. It's just Sategna is built as a slot guy to be that fast and really quick on the outside. You want Daniels to be rushing the quarterback, or you want him standing in the middle of the field and ready to jump and break something up. You don't want him chasing one of them slot dudes like a Sategna. And Sategna showed you why you're going to do that, which honestly, he more so showed you why you're going to see a lot of him and Deion Burks together. I like the fact that we've got two dudes like that. We don't have one. We got two dudes that are lethal. So if one unfortunately goes down, knock on wood, you got another one that can step up and make it happen.
Yeah, the Isaiah Sategna freight train is just going full steam ahead. I think that guy's about to have a really good year for the Oklahoma Sooners. The Oklahoma Sooners are projected to land a couple of prospects in the 2026 recruiting class. We'll discuss them coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment? It's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year over at monarchmoney.com.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Oklahoma Sooners received another projection. This one, a crystal ball from Colin Kennedy for three-star wide receiver out of Texas, Aljour Miles.
Yeah, it looks like the Sooners are making up some good traction with him. He's the 6'2.5", 200-pound wide receiver down there in Kaufman, Texas. Depending on what service you're looking at, he's 4-star on 3, 4-star on Rivals, and he's a 3-star at 247 as well as ESPN, in which ESPN, they don't update their stuff but like twice a year. So we'll see where he finalizes. But very athletic player, someone that, of course, Oklahoma would like to get their hands on. He's also a high jumper. So he's another track kid. It seems that the tradition that Oklahoma has gone with a lot of the wide receivers, they always have to have some sort of connection to track and field. They want dudes that run. They want some high jumpers, sprinters. They like guys that also, participate in like the triple jump, etc. And I like that they're going after that athleticism with the ability to be wide receiver. Because, you can kind of teach the catching portion of it, right? But natural athleticism is really hard to teach, and you can mold that. And I think that Aljour Miles gives you a player that can really add to this room here in the future.
Here's what I had to say about him back in February. He's a big play waiting to happen. He has the speed to run by the defense and does a great job tracking the football in the air. He's a physical player after the catch, displaying a willingness to take on contact and try and gain extra yards. He has really good hands and is able to make plays in traffic. This is a kid that's got a ton of offers. USC is, coming after him. Kansas Oklahoma State, SMU. I mean, it's a Power 4 offer sheet that he's got. Texas Tech, Arkansas, Michigan State, Pittsburgh. Who else? Kansas State. So TCU, and TCU, that's a
USC.
school that's a player. I mean, this is a big time recruitment, and I think he's one of those guys that I think On Three and Rivals probably have this right. He's more of a blue chipper style of player. That's what I see when I watch him play. He's got that ability to be a big time difference maker at wide receiver. The other crystal ball or projections or predictions that came in favoring the Oklahoma Sooners was for Ryan Gilbert, a guy that's projected to play defensive back at the next level.
Yeah, and Colin Kennedy put in a couple of them. He's probably one of the guys that I trust the most when it comes to a lot of those predictions because he's very, very particular. He waits. He's one of the last. Usually him and Josh McCuistion are typically the last ones to put in. Brandon Drum and Parker Thune, they have a really close relationship with a lot of the recruits, so they usually can get it in a lot earlier than others. But these guys usually wait, and they sit back in the cut and wait to see just kind of how things shape up, even when everybody else put theirs in. And Colin usually waits like literally almost last minute before he throws it in there. He has to make sure a lot of T's are crossed and I's are dotted. And I like the Ryan Gilbert piece. He was committed, if I'm correct, to what was it, Texas A&M? Was that where he was originally committed to? I think he had a home before. Yes, he was Texas A&M. He decommitted in February from them. And ever since he decommitted, he's been getting offers like crazy. I mean, Michael Vick over there at Sacramento State tossed an offer for him here in March. And then, of course, Memphis, Baylor. Then you had Washington, Kansas State, SMU. So they've had a lot of people that had some interest in him. Utah, Oregon. So a lot of your money teams, as well as teams that are really known for their defenses, have gone after him. He's about 5'10", 170 out of North Forney. You wonder, if he has the size to really do something in the SEC, but with the way the offer sheet is, with you adding an Auburn in there, an Ole Miss in there, and he was committed to A&M, it kind of tells me that he's probably got the talent to be able to handle this level.
Yeah, so he's probably somebody that projects to play more on the inside than the outside. Like he's going to be a guy that you're going to throw in there as a nickel corner, similar to maybe a Kendall Dolby. You're going to use that coverage ability. He's got good athleticism. He's got enough speed to be able to play in coverage. He's just a really good athlete. So I think this is a very intriguing addition. And it is a little bit, or not addition, he hasn't committed yet, but a intriguing pursuit, we should say.
Yeah.
In that he's not the corner that Oklahoma's been going after. They've been going after the 6-foot-plus corners a lot of times, but listen, if you can play, you can play. And I think the thing that people love about Ryan Gilbert the most is his competitiveness. And I think that's, to me, more important than a lot of the measurables that you see thrown at cornerback, because you got to have a dude out there that wants to battle, because you're going to be in a battle every single time that you're in coverage. And so much about playing cornerback is a mentality, and you've got to have the right mental makeup to be a difference maker at cornerback. And sometimes you find these guys that play bigger than their size. I like to say bigger than their weight class. And Ryan Gilbert, from what I see, he's one of those dudes that plays much bigger than what he's listed at.
Yeah, he is one of those that will compete. And I'm glad you mentioned like the Kendall Dobies of the world. I remember watching KD playing at NEO, and the way he would just hit people, even at his size, at 5'10", you're just like, oh man, he seems like he's undersized, but then you start seeing him hit people, you're like, oh no, he's got that dog in him. And then you got to see him actually on the field at Oklahoma when they finally put him in late in the season. You're like, oh no, he's going to be a difference maker. Like his football IQ, not only is no fear in hitting and tackling, but his IQ in getting to the right spots to make plays is huge. Ryan Gilbert kind of shows a little bit of that as well in his play, that he's one of those players that he's going to make plays. He's going to be a playmaker for you. And if he can go out there and do that, Oklahoma got themselves a nice little gem out there in the recruiting trail.
Yep. So Oklahoma still doesn't have a defender committed to their 2026 recruiting class. Just 4 players at this point, all on the offensive side of the ball: Jaden O'Neal, Daniel Odom, Will Conroy, and who's the tight end? I'm blanking on the tight end.
Ryder Mix.
Say it again. Ryder Mix.
Ryder Mix.
Yeah, Ryder Mix. A dude that's going to be in the mix once he gets to Norman. He, again, good player, good offensive skill talent that they have committed. Now we need to start seeing them build on the defensive side of the ball. We'll see where they go. It's going to take some time. We know the summer month is really when Brent Venables starts really building his recruiting classes each year. So can't wait to break all that down with you here on Locked On Sooners. So make sure you're tuned in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast, especially on YouTube. Go hit that subscribe button. Want to see those numbers bumping over the off season, especially as we get you closer to the 2025 college football season. Make sure you follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Go check out his channel, Unfair Sports, over on YouTube. You can follow me at John 9 Williams. You can read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. The show is at Locked On Sooners on all of your favorite social media platforms. So go check us out over there. But until next time, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. Boomer
Sooner. I think we're going to land that offensive lineman, though. We just got to make him sure he show up on campus.
Yep. Hit that subscribe button.
Do it.